My classmates and I were filled with excitement as we prepared to head to Bordeaux. We packed up, headed to the parking garage, parked our cars, and got on the bus to JFK. The bus ride was long and filled with traffic, but once we hit the airport, we were lucky to breeze right through the check-in process. We made it to our gates, grabbed a bite to eat, and I started my online journal. We made a couple new friends at the gate, including Amy, Caroline, and Hayden, and after boarding the plane, taxiing for an hour, we were served our meal and then knocked out for the flight. We had a short layover in Paris where we enjoyed some yummy macarons to prepare for the French culture, and then hopped on our puddle jumper over to Bordeaux. Upon arriving in the city, we met Lei Young and ran into a bus snafu that required us to get on trams to the hotel. Although this was a stressful experience, it was a great opportunity to see the city. During the short time we were in the city center, you could tell that this was a charming destination filled with culture and certainly fostered the proper environment for wine.
This reminds me of the thing is that I want to sit on it.
Eager to get started, we headed over to the Kedge Business School for our introduction meeting and first class. After setting up the Wi-Fi, we had our first class with Professor and Wine Master Colin Gap. Even though our lecture was 2 hours long, his material was so engaging. I learned so much about the culture in Bordeaux, Burgundy, and Champagne. He talked a lot about how each region bear different importance on factors such as brand name, location, and monopoly in the Champagne region. I found it completely interesting that there's virtually no marketing to sell their products. Marketing in wine in France is basically non-existent. I found it even what could be mediocre wine could be worth so much money just because the bottle says it's from Bordeaux. The marketing doesn't sell. The readings we had before the trip on Blackboard were certainly helpful in understanding some of his material. It was crucial to have some background going into it, to understand both wine vocabulary and context such as growing conditions and prestige. After class, we went to the Site du Vin, which is the Museum of Wine. This was such a cool, interactive experience to supplement our learning. I was able to smell aromas of wine and even took a test to figure out which type of wine matched my personality. There was a simulation dinner that informed us on which wines to use for which occasion in the most beautiful, breathtaking way. So cool. Finally, we indulged in a free glass of wine upstairs on the rooftop. It was a stunning view, and I was even able to try wine we talked about in the lecture, free of cost. On the third day, we had a double lecture from Professor Michelle Mbai. She was more of a businesswoman than a wine connoisseur, different than Colin, but her information was still engaging nonetheless. Her material was more of a mix of business strategies and how to apply them to wine. The fact that so much material from her presentations were marketing concepts that come up regularly in our classes at Quinnipiac was really interesting. I enjoyed how these concepts are universal and not just American. We had a technology issue that prohibited us from doing her original lesson plan. But despite this issue, we put together small presentations that displayed some information on how to market things in America. It was nice to share with her some of the American trends she wasn't aware of. I was relieved that we did case study presentations in class, so I already had practiced presenting with these people. It eased some nerves. Then we enjoyed some free time for dinner and tried some French food, including oysters.
Ouais, moi j'ai un appartement sur la côte. I look forward to teaching.
On the fourth day, we visited the beautiful, quaint village of St. Emilion. Our 45-minute bus ride was honestly relaxing because of all the walking we've been doing. We visited Chateau Dominique and tried 2 wines. Both were red, and I didn't care for either, but I really enjoyed learning how to smell the tannins and indulge in the aromas. It was a character-building experience, and I can use it to network and be sophisticated in the future. When we toured the site and learned how they age wine and the difference between we then toured the site and learned how they age wine and the difference between a metal or wooden barrel. After a photo shoot on the roof, we as a group headed to the village. We had a delicious French lunch and took a historical site tour of St. Emilion. We saw an underground church, and it was filled with these kind of creepy grave sites. It almost felt like an invasion of privacy. But it was interesting to see how the history had been preserved for so long, and how much of the village was built around to operate in the 1200s. It talked a lot about pilgrims, and how their village was so dependent on them at that time, and how they're still so dependent on tourists now. We did some shopping, and then headed back to Bordeaux. On Wednesday night, we did a networking event with students from Kedge. This was honestly one of the most fun experiences of the whole trip, and it was so nice to interact with them and talk to them about how they do college versus how we do college, and see that there were so many similarities and so little differences, despite the fact that it's tough to communicate with this big language barrier.
Petit Chablis, which, as you can imagine from the name, is like the sort of basic level of Chablis.
On day 5, we had our final lecture with Professor Colin Gett. This was followed by a wine tasting. I really enjoyed his material on the economics of wine and the supply and demand side of things. The tasting part was super cool, such a surprise, and very informative for me. Up until that point, I felt like I hadn't learned much about tasting wine or how to order wine on a menu. He showed us how the glass size and shape affected the aromas and how the air flows to engage the scent when you swirl it around. He also talked about how some brands are more expensive based on their color, smell, and location. I appreciated his emphasis on the supply and demand side of wine, given that I'm an economics major. I even found a wine I liked during the tasting. After a morning of school, we went back downtown Bordeaux, did some sightseeing, and shopped for some wine to bring home. We went into the coolest wine store I've ever seen while we were there. It was like 4 stories high, had a huge spiraling staircase, and it was just lined with different bottles of wine. Some of them I had no idea what they even meant. The most expensive bottle of wine there was $2,400. I couldn't believe it. Then to close out the night, we went on a boat tour as a group, which was such an amazing treat from Kedge. The food was delicious, the company was great, and the view was absolutely stunning. It was a great farewell ceremony, and we even got certificates of completion.
I put the leaf over it so it cover the shiny part.
No dirty ass fishing.
On our final day in Bordeaux, as sad as it was, we visited another chateau. This chateau had a house in it that a woman lived for 103 years. Sadly, she passed away in 2020, but what an incredible life to live and what a beautiful place to be. We walked through a bunch of the vines, took a pretty scenic outdoor walk, and then went indoors to see their facilities. They also had some wooden barrels and some metal. We did another wine tasting, and I quite enjoyed these wines. It was interesting to see how many people enjoyed the cheaper wine compared to the more expensive wine, and you'd have no idea before she told you the prices. Another interesting fact is that this is the only winery that has a Bordeaux address. I thought that was pretty cool. After this, we had some free time to say our farewell to the city. Tried some great food, had a couple really good glasses of wine, and did all of the sights that we had yet to see. We headed into our final, long, treacherous travel day. It was once again split up by Paris, where we enjoyed one baguette, the only French food we had yet to eat in the airport. We did some great shopping, somehow made it home, and we're sad to go. I'd like to take an opportunity to really thank Professor Elahi, Amy Davis, Kedge, Lei Young, Elena, everyone that put this trip together, Hannah and Radia, how could I forget? It was an amazing, unforgettable, transformative experience that I am eternally grateful for. The ability to travel and make these experiences increase your intellectual knowledge that no one will ever take away from you. So thank you guys, and I hope you enjoyed my video.